trans women getting pregnant is not as far off as you'd think.
Yep, in the name of science, we're almost there. Men could get pregnant. Almost. Welcome back to the JP Reacts channel, my beautiful freedom-loving friend. This is where we call out lies, hypocrisy, corruption, and highlight the amazing work of other freedom fighters, because I am of the belief that truth does indeed conquer. We have a little bit of science to go through together today, and this comes from a TikToker. I don't know the person's real name. They don't know their real gender, so we're on equal footing there. But this is, I would call it a serial TikToker. Done videos. This guy just produces a lot of content to be ridiculed. A lot of times victimizing himself over people misgendering him.
I have been misgendered 3 times in the past 24 hours at restaurants. Last night I was at Benihana with my girlfriend and the server said, "What about you, sir? What would you like to eat?"
Well, you got a 5 o'clock shadow. You didn't look like a she, her to me, to the wait staff that doesn't even speak English. And in this clip, he's talking about how we're pretty close to trans women, aka men, being able to get pregnant. The science here is really rich. A little backstory. Used to be a man. Some would say still is, but nonetheless has changed his appearance, the way he dresses, and voluntarily changed the way he talks to try to sound like a woman. That's all natural, ladies and gentlemen. Now, as this journey of transition plays, I will say this. I stand by this person's right to live how they want to live. I'm a freedom absolutist. You know, it's freedom to make your choice, as long as your choices don't infringe on the rights of others. Start reading to children, my eyebrows are getting raised. As long as you're not infringing on the rights of other people, I absolutely support this person's choices. Like, I support their right to choose. It's not, I support your right to choose what I would choose or to choose what I think you should choose. Absolutely not. But the thing is, when someone puts themselves online and makes potentially inaccurate claims and goes out in public, essentially harasses wait staff at restaurants on a regular basis because they call him sir, because they gender him, he calls that misgendering, then he raises a fuss, it's harassing wait staff, and you put all that stuff online, you have chosen to be open to ridicule. So if you were sitting there thinking, trans women are actually men, so they can't get pregnant, you obviously don't know, because we have a scientific perspective from a scientist in a lady's red dress. Let's check it out.
Trans women getting pregnant is not as far off as you'd think. In the past 10 years, 50 babies have been born from a uterus transplant.
Uterus transplant from a woman to a woman. Almost the same thing as a woman to a man.
This works is a person with a damaged or missing uterus gets a new uterus.
Dude, by the way, how does your uterus go missing? Dude, if you misplace your uterus, you're doing something wrong in life. Like, sometimes I'll misplace my car keys, but I've never misplaced an internal organ of mine.
Then they get pregnant, then they give birth to a child via C-section. The implanted uterus is then removed so that the person doesn't need to be on anti-rejection meds for the rest of their life.
We wouldn't want to be on meds for the rest of our life, would we?
These implants have only been attempted on cis women, but
AKA women.
There's nothing that says it couldn't work on a trans woman.
There's nothing that says it couldn't work on a trans woman. Well, what if there was something that said that and that exists? What if it's like the difference between XX and XY chromosomes, like the very DNA of a person's makeup says, yeah, I don't do a uterus in my body. You can put it in, but it's not. You can't hook it up to anything. There's that. But from the perspective of what I'm sure is a science believer, there's nothing that says that.
After all, my hormone levels are pretty similar to a cisgender woman. So why not? The main thing in the way is that the science is new, so there aren't enough surgeons out there to do the testing. So it's less about if we can do it and more about when we can do it.
Might not be enough surgeons to do the testing. I actually bet there is. The trans-industrial complex is so happy to take people's money, the money from children and their families. There may not be enough guinea pigs who are humans. So do you mind if we just hack you up? We'll put a uterus in you. I mean, that's like saying we're gonna put a carburetor in you, big incision, like major surgery, cut you open, and we'll put this thing that is completely unnatural to your body in your body. We'll see what happens. We are pretty sure that it might work because the guy in the red dress said it's pretty close to having a done deal on this one. I would volunteer for that. If I got $100, a free cheeseburger, and a milkshake, it's like, yeah, that's a good deal. We just need a few more guinea pigs on this. But go on.
Imagine a trans woman using her own DNA along with her partner's egg to create life. Wouldn't that be incredible?
A trans woman using her own DNA, so that's a man's DNA. I think he's talking about a trans woman using his own sperm and his partner's egg. And the guy with the sperm also has a uterus. I believe that's the picture that's being painted. Now, if this sounds like schizophrenic, Picasso, abstract, it's because it is. These pieces of the picture don't really kaleidoscope together into a coherent picture of reality because we're not really doing reality. But I think we're talking about a guy, probably in a dress, who has sperm, then a uterus is sludged into his body. But why stop there? Why not implant an ovary into him too? Or just see if he naturally grows an ovary. If he declares I'm a woman enough, wouldn't the truth of his identity start to grow ovaries and make eggs? I think it would. So I don't like this person's limiting thinking because I don't think we need two people for this. His sperm and his egg meet in the middle, uterus, baby. It's a little bit inbred. It's, if you think first cousin relations can create some inbreeding characteristics, this is within the same person. So we might have some severe inbreeding, and that's okay. This person's good at science, but I think we're building on this together. He has a hypothesis. Men can get pregnant. I'm like, yeah, but why does the man need anything else if we're just implanting stuff inside of him? All right, you with me? I feel like we're onto something. We should get a Nobel Prize in human mutilation for equality. We'll get back to the video in just a second, but first, have you seen the latest fluoride headlines in the water supply? Significantly scary. The future of oral care isn't fluoride. It's peptides. And the wellness company just launched the first ever peptide paste that regenerates gum tissue, strengthens enamel, and whitens your teeth. It's called Smile, a doctor-formulated breakthrough that works with your body's natural repair process. Its advanced formula blends targeted peptides with blue spirulina, aloe vera, and powerful remineralizers to boost blood flow, stimulate collagen, and help rebuild lost gum tissue. All while gently whitening without sensitivity. No fluoride, no peroxide, no artificial dyes. Just real and clean ingredients that fight bad bacteria so you can build a healthier mouth from the inside out. Are you ready to upgrade your oral health? Well, you get to experience the future of oral care with Smile and get 15% off plus free shipping. Head to twc.health/jpreacts and use code JPReacts. That's twc.health/jpreacts. Take action today for a healthier tomorrow. Now back to the video.
Some researchers think it's already possible and that it'll be attempted in the next year or two.
I wonder if those researchers happen to be trans.
Now, to be clear, I don't want kids. And even if this was an
I don't think anybody wants you to have kids.
option, I wouldn't be interested. But there are so many trans women out there who want this, and they have just as much of a right to pregnancy as anyone else.
I 100% question that. I have zero right to pregnancy. I can get someone pregnant. I have that right. I have zero right to pregnancy. And we're not talking about hey, the U.S. Constitution here. We're talking about the God Constitution. It supersedes our Bill of Rights. I don't have a right to get pregnant. I know I'm probably wrong. This person's probably right because he said so. I would say I don't have a right to get pregnant. I look forward to the equal rights movement that gives me the right to get pregnant. Now, before we go, we've got some more science to get to from this person. They bring something to my mind. Have you ever noticed some people who scream the loudest, accusing others of being bad people, bigots, are in fact so extremely hypocritical that they are the biggest bigot in the room. No self-awareness. They project that out onto the world around them. You're a bigot. You called me a guy. Well, this person has, at his little croissant lesson, he shows his hand. Let's walk you through this real quick.
Counting down trans vocab words that you might not know, starting with number 5, the TERF. Short for trans exclusionary radical feminist, a TERF is someone who thinks they're a feminist, but they're actually not because they don't like trans people. J.K. Rowling and Dave Chappelle are both notorious TERFs.
Notorious TERFs. So we're going to stop there on J.K. Rowling and Dave Chappelle. So this person is speaking pretty negatively of J.K. Rowling, a woman, and Dave Chappelle, a black man. And he believes he's on some kind of minority high horse where he can just speak down to a black man and a woman. And of course, he's positioning himself as the victim of these two. And in reality, that's just him positioning himself. So what we actually have here in reality is a white man speaking very negatively about a woman. Some would call that him expressing misogyny. And he's speaking very negatively about a black man. Some would call that racist. Now, I get it. Wearing a red bow and an ugly yellow dress means you're pretending to be a woman. But in reality, you are being a very misogynistic man towards a woman, and you're being a, well, potentially racist guy towards a black guy. I like closeted bigotry. It's just the less self-awareness a person has, the more entertaining it is to watch them go to work. Now, before we close up, you might be sitting there thinking, gosh, little kids who have to use public restrooms and locker rooms with grown men wearing a dress, those little kids are put in a very unfortunate situation. But what if the predator calls himself the victim and calls the victim the predator? Well, this guy does just that. We'll see him walking out of a restroom in a second, and he's narrating about how hard it is for him to use public restrooms when there's little girls in there. Take a look.
I was just in the women's room at a cheesecake factory.
I'm not surprised he eats at the Cheesecake Factory.
And when I walked in, there was this little girl, like 3 years old, tops. She was
He's probably really good at estimating kids' ages.
standing there alone, I assumed waiting for her parent who was in the stall.
I like the black
And
lipstick.
all the stalls were full. So like I couldn't go in. I just had to wait. And it was me and this little girl and no one else. And she kind of looked at me like, and, you know, I just like nodded my head and didn't look at her. I was like, you know, it's kind of awkward. And it occurred to me that when the parent, who I don't know, leaves the stall, exits their stall and sees me, a trans person, and their little 3-year-old daughter, that they might make an assumption.
One assumption could be there's a guy standing here pretending to be a woman in the women's room. That could be one assumption. Not all assumptions are incorrect, by the way. That would be a correct assumption. That's one assumption of many that could be made.
Based on untrue things that they've heard.
Now, I have heard there have been predatory men who think they're women going into women's locker rooms and restrooms and violating people with both their eyes and it's sometimes physical. That is true. It's not true that all of them do that. It is 100% true that some have. And I would imagine he is alluding to that. And that is true. That has happened. And as a parent, I would assume that's a possibility. And it's true. It's a possibility. And also as a parent, I would assume this isn't right, having a guy in the women's restroom, no matter how well the makeup's done.
An assumption that could be very dangerous for me.
There we have it. Yes, the predator has just made himself into the victim. The best way to disguise being a predator is to make yourself the polar opposite. I'm a victim. This is very dangerous to me, having a 3-year-old girl in the girls' restroom. This is very dangerous to me, a grown man. I love the creativity. You gotta give him that. I don't necessarily buy into, I believe that he believes this. I don't believe it for a second, but I love the creativity. It's just like, as an individual doing the 1984 playbook, I'll do the opposite. I'm literally in the position of wrong, the position of a predator or a potential predator. This is dangerous for me. You know, a lot of people don't understand that predatory children can make this unsafe for me, emotionally unsafe, or if they have a parent who is such a bad parent that they're willing to protect their child, even at the risk of making someone else uncomfortable, it's dangerous for me.
Unsafe for me.
Yeah.
So instead of waiting for that to potentially happen, I left the bathroom and decided I didn't need to pee that bad.
Good choice.
Trans people go through this thought process any time they're in a bathroom.
Yeah, and non-trans people go through the opposite thought process anytime there's a trans person in the bathroom, particularly the women's room that has a man in it. People will, oh, that's not right. Children, they don't buy into your social narrative identity. They buy into the reality that they see. Oh, what the hell is going on here? So nonetheless, this person's not wrong on that. I'd imagine trans people go through that. And apparently that's a price that needs to be paid for being a man in the women's restroom. But nonetheless, this is one of TikTok's finest. He's all over the place, victimizing himself about everything, even assuming the position, not saying a predator, but the position of a predator while pretending he's a victim. Don't be fooled by predators pretending to be victims. It's just a hiding spot. So with that said, let me know what you think of this TikTok's finest in the comments below, and I'll look forward to seeing you on our next video. But until then, just use the bathroom you're supposed to.